Hello, everybody. This is a special Terence's Take. And there are a few people you can call great, but this guy is great. Dick Vitale. You all know Dick Vitale. He's splendid and wonderful for a whole lot of reasons. And Dick, you're in Sarasota, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Sarasota, Florida. Thank you so much for the introduction, Terence. I really, I learned two things as a kid growing up from my mother. Never ever believe in can't. And number two, the second thing I used to hear every day of my life was be good to people and people to be good to you.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You've been good to me through the years and to all of the viewers out there. Listen to this, folks. This guy started at ESPN 39 years ago last week. And that's incredible. Did you ever think you'd be broadcasting that long?
Really just absolutely, not really. I thought when I got hired, I was only going to do it for a couple of weeks to get back to college coaching. Got fired in the NBA on November 8, 1979. And I'm very proud to say that on December 5, 1979, I did the very first major college basketball game ever in the history of ESPN, DePaul in Wisconsin. So I'll take that to my grave. And I think when there was a little smoke in that wheel, man, that wheel is so big. And when we started, we had a little trailer we operated out of an ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And now it's become such a giant in the world of sports. And to be part of that is really special.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of special, this man that you're listening to right now, he is going to be inducted into the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And now let's put this in perspective. We're talking about Howard Cosell. We're talking about Marv Albert. We're talking about Jack Buck. And we're also talking about this guy. The other thing is, you've written, 9, 10, 15? How many books have you written, Dick?
Well, I think it's, if I lost count, I think it's about 12 now. I'm going to do one out right now, and really excited about it because every dollar I would make from the book, Terence, is going to my really thing that I'm obsessed with now is raising money to help kids battle cancer.
Oh, wow.
My new book is Dick Vitale's Mount Rushmores of college basketball, the best of the best in my 40 years at ESPN. And I'm really excited. If people would like a copy autographed, they just go to dickvitaleonline.com. dickvitaleonline.com, and they can get an autographed copy, a great Christmas gift.
I want to talk about that book in a second, but I want to start with you and this Hall of Fame. And the other thing is I've lost count at how many books you've done, and I've also lost count at how many Hall of Fames you're in. Now, I know you're in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. You're in the Big Hall of Fame, James Naismith Hall of Fame. What are some of the other Hall of Fames you're involved in, and do we have time for you to give them all?
I lost count myself. I can't believe this, to be honest with you. Nobody ever starts in television. I know I never did, thinking about Hall of Fames, but right now off the cuff, I'm in as you said, I'm in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I'm in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. I'm in the National Italian Hall of Fame.
Wow.
I'm in the Hall of Fame at the University of Detroit where I coached. I'm in the Hall of Fame where I coached in high school in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm in the Hall of Fame where I live out in New Jersey, Elmwood Park Hall of Fame, and I'm in the Five-Star Basketball Hall of Fame, and it just goes on and on. The Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame, and I've been very blessed, very lucky, and I thank God every day. I grew up in a tremendous family. Like when I get inducted in the Sportscasting Hall of Fame, I'm going to certainly mention my mom and dad. Terence, they were fifth grade educated.
Wow.
Fifth grade. But they had a doctrine of love. And they taught my brother, sister, and I in a great country, if you have passion and pride about what you do, never believe in can't. I lost my eye as a kid. And when I lost my eye as a kid, I thought it was the end of the world. And my mother kept inspiring me that Richie was never Dick, it was Richie. Richie, don't let that get you down. People have it so much worse. You have something they can't hold back, son. She used to always tell me that, make me feel good. She said, they can't hold back your energy. Man, I'd give anything for her to be living and my dad to see the things that have happened in my life.
Yeah, for those who don't know, you grew up in New Jersey. What was the small town you grew up in?
I grew up in North Jersey. I grew up in Elmwood Park, New Jersey, in Garfield. Then I went to East Rutherford High School where the Meadowlands is, and I coached here and was blessed to get some blue-collar, tough, tenacious kids. And we won back-to-back state championships before I went on to Rutgers University.
And, I'm going to get to that book in a minute because I really want to talk to you about the book. But one other thing I got to ask you about broadcasting. A lot of broadcasters have their idols, and I know Al Michaels pretty well. Growing up in Cincinnati at one point, he was the announcer for the Big Red Machine back in the day, and his idol was Vin Scully. And if you listen to Al Michaels, you can hear a little Vin Scully in him. I can't think of anybody that sounds like Dick Vitale. Was there anybody that you idolized growing up and that you kind of model your broadcasting career after?
No, I never even, truth, I'm going to tell you the truth here. I've never considered myself a broadcaster. I consider myself a jock who came out of the locker room. Somebody gave me a microphone, and I went out. And I'll never forget my boss telling me when he hired me, Scotty Connell at ESPN, he said, Dick, let me tell you something. I was thinking of going back coaching in college, and he said, don't do it, my friend. You got an ability that you connect. And I didn't know what he meant about connecting. He said, you connect with people. They may not agree with what you say, but people are going after you talking a game. They're going to that water cooler and say, did you hear what Dick Vitale said? He said that team is this and that. They may not agree. They may disagree. But the bottom line is they react. He said, and that is a gift. He said, don't leave it. You're going to make a good living. Well, I'm lucky I listened to him because it's been a great living and a great life. But, I grew up as a sports fanatic, and I loved all the great announcers. I mean, Kurt Gowdy. I worked with a great one in Jim Simpson. I did a game one time with Al Michaels and Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger and all the young guys at ESPN. And I've been blessed to have some great guys. They're really the nuts and bolts of what I call podcasters. I'm a jock, man. Most of you are analysts. What are we? We're guys that got fired in TV and do coaching and put us in TV.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. And I tell you what, this is a part one of a two-part series, and we're going to finish up part one with this tremendous book that he's got. And again, this book, Mount Rushmores of College Basketball. And Dick, the thing that I thought was very interesting about this book was just the cover. And you've got, again, Mount Rushmore, you got 4 presidents. And in this particular case, you have in order Mike Krzyzewski, Bob Knight, Roy Williams, and Dean Smith. Now, I just have to ask you this. Is that the order of greatness, you think? Krzyzewski, Knight, Williams, and Smith, or was it just by happenstance?
No, not really. No, that had nothing to do there. They're just 4 of the best. And the one thing we got there, what we did is the pupil with the mentor. Mike Krzyzewski certainly played at West Point under Bob Knight, coached under Bob Knight. Roy Williams coached under Dean Smith. So basically that was the thing, the pupil and the mentor. But they were the 4 best. It's really amazing how people don't read and don't on Twitter. They go nuts. Right. And when I came out the book the other day, I can't tell you how many people on Twitter came and said, Dickie V, you must be losing it. How could you have not John Wooden in there? That's a joke. John Wooden's got to be in there. And if they would only read underneath the pictures, it simply tells you in the cover. These are my best in my 40 years at ESPN. John Wooden coached prior to me starting at ESPN in '79. So, again, same thing with players. How could you not have Magic and Larry Bird and Kareem? They weren't playing in my era. I wish people would read, man, instead of going ballistic on Twitter.
Well, I can relate to that part being a journalist for 40 years. People just look at the headlines, if that, and...
Yeah, you're the right to headlines.
Yeah, exactly. And, so I've got to ask you this. Out of those 4 or others, of the ones that you've covered in those 40 years at ESPN, who would you say is the best coach during your tenure as a broadcaster at ESPN?
I got to give the edge to Krzyzewski. I really do, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm not going to dodge the issue and be political. They are all great, obviously. And there's a lot of great guys that are not even on this list. But the reason I give the edge to him is because not only what he's done and what he's done at Duke, he's the winningest coach in the history of our game. Over 1,000 wins, national championships, and the reason I give the edge is what he's done with the international coaching, what he's done with the Olympic team, with those gold medals, and bringing back that spirit that had been lost, bringing back the pride in wearing that USA uniform. And you factor that in with his college coaching, I think that gives him the edge.
I've got to ask you about Bob Knight, simply because being born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, because you and I have an affinity for the University of Notre Dame. And growing up as not only as an Indiana basketball fan, the first beat I had for the Cincinnati Enquirer back in 1978 and '79 was covering Indiana basketball with Bob Knight. And I got a different relationship with Bob Knight than a lot of people. I never had a problem out of Bob Knight. I've got great Bob Knight stories. We had this 30-30 for ESPN the other day that was not very flattering. What side of the fence do you come down on when it comes to Bob Knight, the former Indiana general?
Well, let me just tell you this about Bob Knight. When he's loyal, he's loyal. I was rejected twice. I believe it was 2 times. I didn't get into the Hall of Fame as a contributor to the game. And I get nominated a 3rd time and my phone rings. And, hey, Dick, this is Bob Knight. Oh, how you doing, Coach? Well, let me tell you what I did. I wrote to all the coaches asking for, I said, Bob, you don't have to do that, as Bob can be. Don't you tell me what to do. I did it because it's the right thing to do. So I wrote to every living head coach that coached in the college ranks who's in the Hall of Fame. John Wooden, Krzyzewski, Denny Crum, John Thompson. I wrote them all. And I said it's a crime that Dickie V is not in the Hall of Fame because it's been dominated by the NBA. There's no way that we could have a contributor's role and not have Dickie V. I mean, I'm listening to him telling me all this. And he says, you're probably not going to get in again because it's so NBA dominated, but I'm going to send you your Hall of Fame. Your Hall of Fame is, I have letters here from every living coach that has coached that's in the Hall of Fame. And you're going to go, wow, when you read, like John Wooden, when he wrote handwritten, I got the letter in my office, hung up.
Oh, boy.
Dear to John DeLeven, he wrote to the head of the Hall of Fame, John Wooden's letter, you can't have a contributor's role without Dickie V. Dick has brought so much passion. Well, I was blown away that he would go through that situation, and then he took all the letters and he mailed them to the Hall of Fame. He said, I don't know who votes, basically. I'm not paraphrasing this. I don't know who votes, but I'm just telling you this. If you aren't going to listen to these guys, this is the landscape, the heart of college basketball. Then there's something wrong. Well, I can tell you this. I don't know what kind of role it played. I don't know. I got in that year. So how could I be negative about Bob Knight? Now, let's face reality. And he knows, and I tell him. I just talked to Bob the other day, like 24 hours ago. And I would tell him up and down. I mean, I have no right laying a hand on the kid. I mean, absolutely not. But there's such a side of him, and that competitive fire that people see is what made him what he is. But it's a different culture now. Things have changed. You think you could do that 30-30 on maybe a Bo Shep on a Woody Hayes, on a Paul Bear Bryant? Come on, let's be real here. A Carson. I mean, I'm not saying it's right, but the coaches, are you kidding me? Some of the coaches today make sailors blush.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. But I feel bad because he's created somebody himself, Terence. The bottom line is the guy was a genius at what he did. He was way ahead of his time, what he did at West Point and what he did in Indiana. But unfortunately, along the way, he made some major mistakes, and you just can't do some of the things that he's done.
Well, that's the Bob Knight that I know, and this is the Dick Vitale that I know. And that's part 1 of a 2-part series here on Dick Vitale. So stick around for part 2 at some point, because it's going to be great.